the topic I just wanted to address briefly is doctoral research Coram Deo, or before the face of God. And one of the things we would want to say at the Kirby Lang Center is that doctoral research is a holy calling. And Paul says to us, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all to the glory of God. Now, sometimes we gloss that very quickly, and especially because we're not Jews, we don't realize that no Jew would think eating or drinking is of no relevance. They would see it, as does the Old Testament, as very important. And so just as with eating and drinking, so with doctoral research, we are called to do it for the glory of God, to enhance the reputation of God in his world. Now, I think all of us, and you can tell us in our Q&A and discussion time if I'm wrong, but you will be well aware that such an emphasis is rare in the university context today. I doubt it, although I'd love to be told that I'm wrong, but I doubt you've ever been asked how your research will enhance God's reputation. And so as the Kirby Lang Center has embarked on doctoral supervision, and we have run, for example, a mentoring course for our supervisory team, and we have intentionally been trying to think through doctoral research and supervision from this perspective of doing it all to the glory of God. Now, naturally, we seek to learn best and good practice wherever it may be found, but we do want to think doctoral research through carefully through the lens of the great Missio Dei, the mission of God. Now, what insights does such reflection yield? And I just want to foreground two issues. One is why we do research, and then the second is how we do research. I think the impetus for research could be located, amongst other places, in Proverbs 1 verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge and wisdom. The world, as Calvin reminds us, is the theater of God's glory. And the fear of the Lord is profound reverence for the Lord, which is the starting point and foundation for exploration of his world. If you've done work on wisdom, especially in the Old Testament, you will probably know that wisdom is grounded in a theology of creation, and all research is an attempt to understand some aspect of the creation more deeply. It's just the nature of research. Now, some aspect means that research will always involve abstracting part of the creation from its embeddedness and lived experience. Now, I've said something there very quickly, which actually requires considerable elaboration. I can't do that now. But a major test of such research will be whether or not it ultimately deepens lived experience. And there you've got one big motivation for why to do research, for the glory of God, and to deepen the lived experience of God's people and humans. Just take hard work on a part of the Bible, for example. In my opinion, the primary place for the reception of the Bible is not the university or the seminary, but the gathered church. And thus, a test for such research would be whether or not it deepens the church's reception of that part of the Bible. So that's just some thoughts on why we do research, thinking it through from the perspective of the glory of God. But how do we do research? Does our approach to research change the way we practice it? Well, the answer, I think, is yes and no, but here are some ways in which I think it does or should. I think if we are seeking to do research to the glory of God, it needs, in my opinion, to be done faithfully. The hyphen is deliberate. It's not a typo. Now, modernity, and we all live in modernity, didn't seek to eradicate religion, but it seeked to privatize it and to keep it out of the great public spheres of life, including universities and education. The Kirby Lang Center's approach is precisely the opposite. We request, we have developed a program that invites that Christian faith be fully engaged and leveraged in our research. So in other words, we think that research done to the glory of God will be faithful. Now this includes things, it's got many dimensions, but includes things like that we'll saturate our work in prayer, that we will reject a dichotomy between the inspiration of prayer and worship and the perspiration of hard, rigorous academic work. Those things can be gloriously intertwined. Secondly, such research will be done consciously. All research carries with it epistemological, ontological, the nature of reality, and anthropological, the view of the human person, presuppositions. And if you just think about these for a moment, you'll realize they're not neutral or singular, but that very different views are held about such things. Now, unless you are a philosopher, and I would say hallelujah if you are not called to know all about such things. However, you do need to know enough to ensure that you are not one of those Christians so delightful, but practicing what I call Trojan horse research, smuggling alien frameworks into your work unconsciously. Recent decades have witnessed a remarkable flourishing of Christian philosophy, so that excellent resources are available in this regard. Thirdly, we think such research should be practiced integrally. Research should not be practiced out of one worldview that is in conflict with the Christian worldview of the researcher, as though somehow, by some magic, these two irreconcilable worldviews will finally be reconciled. There should be an integrality about our research, making up a seamless whole. Fourthly, we think research should be practiced contextually. How do you decide what to research? For most of the students here, I would have to ask, how did you decide? Okay, and that's an interesting question. And now in my experience, generally what happens is the prospective supervisor says to the student, so what do you want to work on? And then it proceeds from there. In our supervisor's course, we rethought this. And in my view, the dissertation topic should emerge at the intersection of the desires and abilities of the student on the one hand, and the needs of our day on the other. Missionally, our gifts need to be stretched towards the needs of the day if we are to participate in the Missio Dei. And such discerning work also needs to be done communally. Fifthly, doctoral research should be practiced with intentional formation in mind. Done well by the student and the supervisor and the community, doctoral research, I have seen this again and again, is profoundly formative. It is a once in a lifetime opportunity to learn to write really well, to learn how to open up a topic and think it through critically from a Christian perspective, to learn how to develop a research project and to execute one, skills which will serve you for the rest of your life, and all this while allowing your own voice to come to the fore. Sixthly, research should have a communal dimension. Research is inherently solitary, and there's nothing we can or should do about that. However, we need community that enhances our research, and that is what the Kirby Lang Center is committed to. And we invite you to join us in developing such community. Finally, and in conclusion, Christian research or research to the glory of God should be done with excellence. Calvin Seerfeld, the Canadian aesthetician, says the artist should imagine Gabriel standing behind him or her as they work away on their palette, waiting to report to the council of the Lord what sort of work is emerging from this servant of Yahweh. It's exactly the same with our research. And so if I wanted to be difficult, I would say, I wonder how Gabriel is reporting to the council about your research. Now that can be scary, but it should not scare us, but encourage us continually and communally to aspire towards excellence. At all costs, we must avoid the pervasive addiction to mediocrity in our cultures. There is, of course, so much more to be said. At the end of my outline, I've put two indispensable resources. Sertalange is the best book I know on the spirituality of the intellectual life. And if, like most researchers, you experience a lot of resistance to getting your work done, the Pressfield's book is the antidote. He will not let you off the hook. So those are just two resources I think every doctoral student should have in their toolbox.